It begins with silence, the vast, empty quiet of the Queensland bush, a place where time seems to slow down, and the nearest neighbor can be miles away. It's in this profound isolation that a darkness can take root, festering unseen and unheard. On December 12th, 2022, four police officers drove down a road just like this one. They were on their way to a routine job, a simple welfare check for a missing person. It was a task they'd done countless times before. But this time was different. This time, they weren't walking towards a house. They were walking into a kill zone, an ambush, a meticulously planned massacre that would become one of the darkest days in Australian history. This is the story of how a routine call became a 6-hour siege, how 3 lives of service and sacrifice were brutally stolen, and how a family's descent into a private, paranoid world of conspiracy and delusion exploded into an act of domestic terrorism. Before we delve into the darkness of that day, it's crucial we remember the light that was extinguished. This story is not about the killers. It is about those they took. Constable Matthew Arnold was just 26 years old. To his family, he was the kid with the broad, cheeky grin. A talented athlete who had represented his country in volleyball, Matt had found his true calling in the Queensland Police Service. He was 1 shift away from coming home for a family celebration and 2 days away from starting a dream role in the Child Protection Unit. He had dedicated his life to protecting others. Constable Rachel McCrow, 29, was described by her family as a beautiful, compassionate soul. Her colleagues remembered her infectious smile and her unwavering determination to be a force for good. She was sworn into the force in 2021, an amazing officer who was completely committed to helping her community. The 2 young officers were partners. They served the rural communities of the Western Downs, a vast, sparsely populated region of Queensland. They were the face of law and order in a place where everyone knows their local cop. And then there was Alan Dare. At 58, Alan was a beloved husband, a cherished father figure, and an adored poppy to 6 grandchildren. He and his wife had just moved to their Wieambilla property 3 months earlier, seeking the peace and quiet of country life. He was known in the community as a giant man that did things that really matter, the kind of person who always showed up to help a neighbor in need. Matthew Arnold, Rachel McCrow, Alan Dare, 3 people defined by their connection to community, their sense of duty, and their commitment to others. Their lives stood in stark, tragic opposition to the paranoid, isolated world that was waiting for them just down the road at 251 Waynes Road. The police had a simple reason for being there. A man named Nathaniel Train, a former school principal from New South Wales, had been reported missing. The inquiry led 4 officers, Constables Arnold and McCrow, along with Constables Randall Kirk and Keely Brough, to his last known location, the remote property owned by his brother. At approximately 4:35 p.m., the 2 police cars arrived at a locked front gate. The house was invisible from the road. After honking the horn and getting no response, the 4 officers made a fateful decision. They jumped the fence and began the long walk up the driveway. They had no idea they were being watched. 4:37 p.m., the ambush is sprung. From a camouflaged hide 120 meters away, Nathaniel Train fires a single shot. The bullet strikes Constable Matthew Arnold. He is killed instantly. In the same volley of gunfire, Constable Rachel McCrow is hit in the legs and falls to the ground, grievously wounded. Chaos erupts. Constable Randall Kirk returns fire, but is shot in the hip as he retreats to his vehicle. managing to escape under a hail of bullets. Constable Keely Broff scrambles for her life, diving into the long grass beside the driveway. The attackers then light the grass on fire, a calculated move to flush her out. 4:46 p.m. Wounded and alone, Constable Rachel McCrow fights for her life. Body camera evidence would later reveal her extraordinary courage. She attempted to treat her own injuries while recording vital intelligence about the scene. Then, with her attacker advancing, she emptied her 15-round pistol in a final act of defiance. Gareth Train executed her at close range. Around 5:30 p.m., the tragedy deepens. Alan Dare, seeing smoke from the neighboring property, does what any good neighbor would do. He drives over to help. As he gets out of his car, he is shot in the back and killed. The quiet property in the middle of nowhere has become a war zone. A massive police response is initiated. A siege has begun, but the officers arriving on the scene still have no idea who they are dealing with or why this is happening. To find those answers, they would have to unravel a story of radicalization that had been building for years. The siege at 251 Waynes Road ended late that night, after the elite Special Emergency Response Team breached the property. In a final, intense firefight, all three perpetrators, Nathaniel Train, his brother Gareth, and Gareth's wife Stacey, were killed. As dawn broke, investigators began the enormous task of piecing together the massacre. The crime scene itself told the first part of the story. This was no ordinary home. It was a fortress. They found camouflaged hides built for an ambush. A sophisticated surveillance network of hidden cameras and motion sensors. Defensive barricades made of logs and steel. The evidence was overwhelming. The attack on police was not a spontaneous confrontation. It was premeditated. Ballistics told the next chapter. The Trains had used high-powered hunting rifles, firing rounds that no standard-issue police body armor could stop. Investigators also recovered the stolen Glock pistols belonging to Constables Arnold and McCrow, confirming Nathaniel Train had used the fallen officer's weapon against police in his final moments. But the most chilling evidence was digital. On seized memory cards and computers, a virtual manifesto of hate and paranoia was uncovered. In Stacey Train's diary, they found cryptic entries about preparing for their time in battle. And in the middle of the siege, Gareth and Stacey had recorded and uploaded a video to YouTube. They called the police devils and demons. This was the key. Their motive wasn't random violence. It was ideological. But where did this ideology come from? The digital trail led investigators 13,000 kilometers away to a small town in Arizona, USA. There, the FBI arrested a man named Donald Day Jr., an online conspiracy theorist. U.S. prosecutors alleged that for over a year, Day had been sending the Trains a steady stream of Christian end-of-days extremist content, describing police as malignant and encouraging them to show no quarter. The isolated family in the Australian bush had found their prophet online. So who were the Trains? How did two former school teachers and a one-time school principal become radicalized killers? Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Andrew Abood, testifying at the official inquest, gave a diagnosis as rare as it is disturbing: a shared psychotic delusional disorder. Folie à trois, a madness for three. Dr. Abood identified the older brother, Gareth Train, as the primary, the source of the delusion. For decades, Gareth had been immersed in conspiracy theories. He believed the Port Arthur massacre was a government plot and filled online forums with anti-police rhetoric. He was the anchor of the family's paranoia. His younger brother, Nathaniel, was once a respected principal at a tough school. But his life unraveled after a major heart attack in 2021. Vulnerable and scared, he fell completely under Gareth's influence, rejecting modern medicine out of a paranoid fear doctors wanted to give him a monkey heart. He quit his job over vaccine mandates, illegally crossed the state border with a stash of guns, and went to live off-grid, believing he was in a place where God had told him he had to be. Stacey Train, formerly married to Nathaniel, was now with Gareth. Also a former teacher who lost her job over vaccine mandates, she fully embraced the delusion. Her diary and text messages revealed a woman who genuinely believed spy planes were flying over their property to poison them. The three had become a closed loop, an echo chamber where their deepest fears were amplified and validated. Their shared delusion was glued together by an extreme ideology, a form of Christian fundamentalism known as premillennial dispensationalism. They believed the end of the world was imminent, and that they were soldiers in a final, holy battle between good and evil. In their minds, when the 4 police officers jumped the fence at 251 Waynes Road, they weren't public servants doing a welfare check. They were the devils and demons they had been prophesied to fight. They were evil incarnate, arriving at their doorstep to begin the apocalypse. Because the 3 perpetrators died at the scene, there would be no criminal trial. Instead, the search for answers fell to a coronial inquest, a formal 5-week inquiry designed not to assign blame, but to find facts and, most importantly, to prevent a similar tragedy from ever happening again. Presided over by State Coroner Terry Ryan, the inquest heard harrowing testimony from the surviving officers and reviewed the deeply confronting body-worn camera footage from Constables Arnold and McCrow. But beyond the horror of the attack itself, the inquest uncovered a series of catastrophic systemic failures. Mundane, bureaucratic mistakes that had deadly consequences. The most damning revelation was a critical failure in interstate intelligence sharing. On the morning of the shootings, New South Wales police had received emails from Gareth Train containing explicit threats. He warned that if trouble arrives on my doorstep, it will be dealt with forthwith. That vital information was never passed on to Queensland police. An officer testified that had she known, she would not have sent 4 police there. The inquest also revealed a communications breakdown at the scene. Wounded officers were unable to contact colleagues for help because their police radios were on the wrong channel. The master list of channels they were using was out of date, a simple but fatal administrative error. Finally, it was revealed that authorities had already made the decision to revoke Nathaniel Train's firearms licenses. But the notice was never served because it was sent to old, out-of-date addresses. The system designed to disarm a dangerous man had failed. The Wieambilla tragedy was not just an act of extremist violence. It was a perfect storm, where a family's private madness was allowed to escalate into a public massacre because the systems designed to protect us, and our police, failed at the most critical moments. The murders at Wieambilla sent a shockwave of grief across the nation. The memorial service for the fallen officers was attended by thousands, a sea of blue paying tribute to their colleagues. But from that profound loss came a powerful catalyst for change. The tragedy forced Australia to confront its vulnerabilities head-on. 1 year after the attack, citing Wieambilla as the direct cause, the Australian government finally committed to creating a National Firearms Register, a system designed to give police real-time data on every gun owner in the country, closing the gaps that allowed the trains to amass their arsenal undetected. The Queensland Police Service implemented immediate changes. They updated their radio channel lists, placing QR codes inside every vehicle to ensure officers are never again left isolated. They also issued a new directive, requiring all interactions with potential extremists, no matter how minor they seem, to be formally logged and assessed by counterterrorism specialists. And most importantly, the nation has worked to ensure the legacy of the victims is one of honor and remembrance. Bravery medals were posthumously awarded to Constables Arnold and McCrow, and to Alan Dare for his selfless final act. Parks and monuments now stand in their name. Their sacrifice, born from a day of unimaginable hatred, has resulted in tangible reforms that will protect countless lives in the future. The Wieambilla shootings serve as a chilling case study for our modern age. It reveals the terrifying speed at which social isolation, mental health crises, and online radicalization can converge to create a perfect storm of violence. It highlights the threat of small, autonomous cells that operate below the radar, and it underscores the absolute life or death importance of communication and intelligence sharing in law enforcement. But above all, the story of Wieambilla is a testament to the nature of courage. The bravery of 4 officers who, in the service of their community, walked into the unknown. The heroism of 2 who fought until their last breath, and the selflessness of a neighbor who died trying to help. Their lives were a powerful counterpoint to the nihilistic ideology that took them. While the Trains chose to withdraw from the world in hatred, Matthew, Rachel, and Alan chose to engage with it, to serve it, and ultimately to sacrifice for it. That is their enduring legacy. What are the biggest lessons we can learn from this tragedy? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. And if you found this video valuable, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into complex cases. Take care, and see you next time.